Once upon a time, in a remote African village in the eastern hills called Ekwe, there lived a young girl named Zari. Zari was very different from the other villagers. She did not have the dark skin typical of the inhabitants of Ekwe and of Africa in general, but very fair skin and golden hair. Her skin was so white that the villagers called her Ona, which in their language means white lady. When she was born, the whole village was amazed, as they had never seen a girl with such white skin. At first, the villagers reacted with nervous giggles and suspicious glances, expecting that over time her skin color would darken and become more normal. However, days and weeks passed, and Zuri's skin and hair remained the same. It was not a temporary oddity, but a seemingly permanent condition, unlike anything they had ever seen before. Concern grew, especially when Zuri's father, Matsuoko, fell seriously ill and passed away a few weeks after her birth. Her father's death was largely attributed to his daughter's unusual appearance. Some villagers were convinced that Zuri was an evil spirit sent to cause harm. As Zuri grew up, she was constantly faced with a mix of shock and rejection due to her strange condition. However, her mother, Unita, loved her deeply despite her appearance and protected her from the angry murmurs of the villagers. But fate had other plans for Zuri. When she was only 12, her world fell apart. Her mother fell seriously ill and, within weeks, she died as well. Many in the village concluded that Zuri's strange appearance had caused the death of her parents. Zuri then found herself at the mercy of her stepmother, Obin, and her 3 stepsisters, Anu, Ego, and Ifai. Zuri's life was already difficult, but it became unsustainable after her mother died. Obin mistreated her, sending her to do all the household chores, going to the farm, to the river, and returning home to cook, while his own daughters did nothing. Zuri did all the work, even washing clothes for Obin and his daughters. The 3 sisters never played or talked to Zuri. Whenever they went out together, they made sure to keep a distance so that people wouldn't see them with her. They made her life miserable, but Zuri was never sad or resentful. Despite the mistreatment, Zuri always kept a smile on her face. Sometimes, when the fatigue of overwork made her cry, she remembered her beloved mother's words: "The villagers may hate you for your appearance, but hatred will only breed more hatred and pain. Love will win." One cool evening, as her foster family lounged outside enjoying the breeze, the shouts of the village messengers echoed through the air. Anu, Ego, and Ifai sat, eager to hear what the messenger had to say. Obin snapped to attention when the messenger announced that the next day there would be a dance contest at the palace, where all the young girls were expected to attend as Prince Amadi would choose his fiancée and future queen. The girls' eyes sparkled as they imagined what it would be like to be chosen. Zuri interrupted her daydreams by asking if she could attend, to which Obin replied dismissively, "Have you looked in a mirror? Who would want to have you as a wife, let alone the handsome Prince Amadi?" Anu laughed mockingly, joined by Ego and Ifai. The next few days were filled with festive energy in the village as they prepared for the choice of the prince's fiancé. All the eligible girls prepared themselves, choosing their best dresses and jewelry to attract the prince's attention. Obin went to the market to buy beautiful fabrics and pearls for her daughters, convinced that one of them would capture the prince's attention and become queen. That night, Obin made sure that her daughters practiced some dance steps and anointed them with oil so that they could move seductively and win Prince Amadi's heart. Meanwhile, Zuri sat alone by her house, wondering what it would be like to have normal skin and be accepted into the community. At the palace, Prince Amadi was upset. He did not support his father's idea of forcing him into marriage, as he had made it clear that he wanted to find someone he truly loved. Amadi, being the only son of King Uju, knew that it was crucial for him to marry and produce an heir to continue the dynasty. Amadi's inability to marry and produce an heir worried King Uju greatly, keeping him from sleeping at night. Finally, the eve of the ceremony arrived, and all the people made their way to the palace in their finest clothes, hairstyles, and accessories. From afar, Zuri could hear the joyful music and singing as she watched the procession of beautiful young women. For a brief moment, she imagined herself among them, but was quickly brought out of her reverie by Oban's scornful voice. "This ceremony is for ordinary women, not for Snow White like you. Go back inside until this is all over and fulfill a task in the palace." Prince Amadi and King Uju sat watching the event as the young girls began to dance energetically to the beat of the drums, smiling and moving around. Zari, at home, cried as she heard the sounds of the drums coming from the palace, wishing to feel normal and blend in with the others. At the palace, Prince Amadi looked at the young girls parading before him, remembering a heated argument with his father. King Uju had arranged this elaborate bride selection ceremony as a desperate ploy to force his son to choose a wife. Amadi had shouted to his father that this was folly. "How am I to judge a wife's true worth by her dancing and physical beauty alone? Those qualities mean nothing without an inner glow." King Uju, enraged, replied that it was his duty as a prince to take a wife and produce sons to continue the line. Amadi objected, arguing that he should not be deprived of the dignity of following his own heart. The gentle voice of his mother, the queen, was the only one that managed to calm the tensions. "Please, this discussion does not solve anything. You do not need to settle everything tonight. Sleep, and let us leave this disagreement until we calm things down." Thus, the conflict was temporarily quelled, but marriage remained on Amadi's mind as he endured the ceremony taking place before him. His disinterest in each young woman was evident. Although they all danced beautifully, he found no one he wanted as a wife. Finally, the night ended, and the young women were ready to return home. King Uju, disappointed, called the procession, announcing that the selection ceremony would continue each night. Marriage was still very much on Amadi's mind as he endured the ceremony unfolding before him. His indifference to each of the young women was evident. They all danced beautifully, but Amadi found no one among them that he desired as a wife. Finally, the night was over and the young women were ready to return home. King Uju, disappointed, called for the procession, declaring that the selection ceremony would continue each night until his son chose his wife and future queen. He attempted to humiliate Amadi into conformity, but the prince simply held his father's gaze before rising and leaving the ceremonial area. In the following nights, Amadi stood firm as the young girls paraded in front of him, but his expression did not change. His father's pressure grew every day, threatening to disinherit him. However, Amadi was determined to marry only when he found a woman who made him feel the fire of true love. One day, he decided to escape from the palace in disguise to calm his anxiety. He was heading towards the river when suddenly, his heart skipped a beat. He had never seen anyone so serene and kind. Prince Amadi smiled at her and said hello. Zari, surprised, thought that no one had ever looked at her that way, except her mother. Amadi introduced himself as Amadi and asked to be her friend. "You can't be my friend," Zari replied. "Can't you see my skin? It's so white and ugly." But the prince assured her that she wasn't ugly, but beautiful and unique in her own way. No one had ever spoken to Zari so kindly before. "You are very kind," Zari said, and she agreed to be Amadi's friend. This became a routine. He would sneak out of the palace to meet his new friend in the fields near the river, where they would sit under a mango tree for hours, sharing stories and enjoying each other's company. One evening, Ekwe told her sisters that the last palace ball, she had noticed the prince looking at her and believed that he was in love with her. Hearing this, Oban was delighted. "My daughter," he said happily, "tomorrow I will send you to the palace with fruits for the queen. Make sure the prince sees you and move your waist well to attract his attention." Zari, overhearing the conversation, felt sad, but then she remembered her new friend and his bright smile. "Perhaps I will never have the prince or be accepted in society, but at least I have a friend," she thought. Ekwe went to the palace as her mother had planned, but the prince did not even look at her. Meanwhile, Zari and her new friend continued to meet at their usual place, and soon their friendship transformed into a deep love. One day, Amadi confessed his love and his desire to get married. Zari had learned to love this man, who was the only one who had shown her true love and treated her like a human being. She agreed to marry him. Then Amadi confided to her, "I am Prince Amadi. Zuri's eyes widened. She could not believe that she had been with the crown prince of Efwe all this time and that she had just agreed to become his wife. King Uju was shocked when Amadi brought Zuri home. He was totally against his son's marriage to the White Lady, fearing that his enemies would mock him. However, a white wife was better than no wife at all. Despite his reservations, King Uju gave his blessing for Amadi and Zuri's marriage. The villagers did not accept her. They mocked the prince, assuming that he had lost his mind by choosing Zuri over all the beautiful women in the village. When news of the marriage spread, Oban and his daughters could not believe it. That night, they made her sleep outside in the cold, accusing her of having used witchcraft to bewitch the prince. Oban did his best to send messages to the queen, pleading with her to never allow Zuri to marry her son, but all his efforts were in vain. The villagers' hatred towards Zuri intensified now that she had become the only lady in the village that Prince Amadi loved and wanted as a wife. The villagers of Efwe held their breath as Prince Amadi married Zuri in an elaborate ceremony at the palace. Although many did not support this union and mocked the prince and his fiancée, they refused to attend the marriage. However, that did not matter to Prince Amadi. He was marrying the love of his life, and that was all that mattered to him. After the wedding, Zuri moved into the palace to live with her new husband, leaving her wicked stepmother and sisters behind. She received a warm welcome at the palace, and for the first time in her life, she felt a sense of belonging. The queen was very kind to her and told her that her unique skin did not mean she was evil or had a bad appearance. Many years ago, I traveled to a faraway land and saw many people like you. What you have, my dear, is called albinism. You are simply an albino, a beautiful albino. You are not evil, the queen assured her. Finally, Zuri found a family who loved her and cared for her like a normal person. One morning, something very strange happened in Efwe. The villagers woke up in pain, finding blisters all over their bodies. Both young and old had these strange blisters, except for Zuri. The village healers did their best to help, but no one could cure the strange blisters. The villagers lay on the ground, crying in pain from morning until night. King Uju summoned a powerful healer named Adama from a distant land called Order. When Adama arrived and questioned the king, he said, "Why have you called me, if the solution is here, among you?" The people were confused and did not quite understand what Adama was saying. This day was destined to come, and the gods have prepared you for it, sending the healer in advance. Adama continued. 21 years ago, a special girl was born, destined to save you. This girl I speak of has very fair skin, different from each of you. Her special skin contains the cure for this rare disease. The village was shocked to realize that Zuri was the person destined to save them. Following Adama's instructions, Zuri headed to the Edo River and submerged herself 3 times over 3 days. There, she found green leaves growing around the river. She collected them and applied the extract to the villager's skin, proving to be the ultimate remedy. Despite the way the villagers had treated her, Zuri still had compassion for them and was happy to have been chosen for such a special task. Thus, Zuri was able to cure the strange blisters that had afflicted the village of Efwe. After this incident, everyone regretted how they had treated her all those years. They apologized and fully accepted her, not only as their future queen, but as a great healer sent by the gods to save them. Oban and his daughters also deeply regretted their actions and came to the palace to ask for forgiveness. Zuri, with a kind heart, forgave them all. Over time, she became well-versed in traditional medicine, and there was no illness she could not cure. A year later, Zuri gave birth to twin boys to Prince Amadi. The king, the prince, and all the people rejoiced, and they all lived happily ever after. The story of the brave prince who married a lady born different became a legend, reminding everyone of the importance of looking beyond physical appearances and treating people with kindness, no matter their skin color or differences, as it is our differences that make us unique, each with a special purpose.